Have you heard the talk of the cities and the towns? There's a fear from the inside and the toil all around. I've been hoping for my help, find the cure to come and save.
Hello there, everyone, and welcome to Critical Mass TV, the show that believes in a second enlightenment, 2.0, if you will, where reason and truth have higher standing than narrow-minded corporate greed. Enlightenment 2.0, because the first one didn't take. And yes, you can use that. Well, today is my birthday, by the way. It's January 5th, 2014, and we have a tremendous show in store for you tonight. To lead off, Carmen Solari, the Fair Trade Programs Manager for the Peace and Justice Center of Vermont, is here with me to talk briefly about ongoing projects that she's involved with. Then on Kathy's art break, we are going to meet a young local guitarist. His name is Matteo Palmer, and we're going to hear him play live and let him plug his new CD. And then finally, we are going to discuss the Gas Metro pipeline. I would call it Vermont Gas, but that's a misnomer because it has nothing to do with Vermont. The Gas Metro pipeline, recently approved by the Corporate Service Board. For the sake of honesty, I can't really call it a public service board because that's not what it does. We're going to discuss fracked gas, international paper, false energy solutions, and the people rallying to stop it. Some mixed mental arts for intellectual self-defense. So, hi, Carmen.
Hi.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Happy birthday.
Yeah, well, thank you. You like plugging my own birthday. Yeah. So Carmen was the first guest that I ever had on the first show, and you coming back must mean something.
Oh,
It
yeah.
means we got it right or
Yep.
did something right.
I loved it.
So thank you very much. Carmen and I are planning a show about the garment industry and fair trade and third-party certifiers for the February 16th live show. And I know that the Peace and Justice store buys and sells a lot of different fair trade items, and a lot of other Vermont businesses do also. And you've been involved with a campaign centered around the University of Vermont apparel and the apparel that they sell up at the university. Tell us who you're working with and why it's important and what you've been doing.
Sure. So the clothing industry in general just seems like a very big issue to tackle. It seems like we're very removed from where our clothing comes from and who makes it. So we started a campaign a while ago, the Garment Campaign, to look into it and to see, because there's not really a lot of fair trade clothing. There is some, but it's really pricey and hard to get your hands on. So
yeah.
We just kind of looked at mass-produced clothing and what's going on there. And so we found that UVM uses a third-party certifier that isn't ideal. So we're partnering, the Peace and Justice Center is partnering with V-Step, which is a club at UVM, the Fashion Club at UVM, Amnesty International at UVM, and also Fair Trade Burlington, which is a coalition of local people who just want trade to be fair.
Right, okay.
Yep, so we started having meetings and seeing kind of what we wanted to do, what direction we wanted to go in, and so we met with, or we talked to UVM about maybe having them move their third-party certifier to a different organization.
So this is, just to clarify real quick,
Yeah,
the third-party certifier is the organization that actually would put their stamp on a product and to determine whether it's fair trade or whether it's not.
So it's not fair trade. What they're doing is they're monitoring labor rights
Gotcha.
and codes of conduct. So essentially, big corporations, big clothing corporations, universities, they outsource the making of their clothing to
course,
large
yep.
factories. This is not news. And so they can't possibly monitor everything that's happening in those factories. So what they do is they take a third-party certifier, they contract the third-party certifier to go
Right.
into the factories and say, yes,
Okay.
everything is going, as it should be, and all the codes of
To a
conduct are
certain
being
set of
obeyed.
standards.
And so, those standards vary. So sometimes they just work with the code of conduct for the country, by labor laws of the country, and that's it. And that's all they're checking for.
Okay.
And sometimes it's more. Are there children working on the floor? Do they get
Sure.
a break every 8 hours? Just things that we think are basic but aren't internationally.
Right.
So what we found was that UVM uses the Fair Labor Association, which is one of these third-party certifiers who, when you go to their website, everything looks great. It looks like, they're really, checking all the boxes and are interested in human rights and labor
independent.
rights. Yeah, yep, that's what it seems. And then you go to Google and you type in Fair Labor Association, and you get countless articles about so many things that they've let slip through the cracks. They were actually the company that came in after the suicides at Foxconn, Apple's factory.
Chinese factories.
And there were many, many labor rights violations, making interns work for 12 to 16-hour shifts with no pay as a stipulation of their internship. So, we can go ahead and just call that slave labor.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so they had suicides, and the Fair Labor Association was brought in to certify that everything was kosher in the factory. And the CEO of FLA said that the suicides must have been out of boredom, that it wouldn't have been because of anything the factory was doing. So,
well, they're serving basically
It's disappointing.
Google. That would be more like marketing spin for Apple.
Yeah.
For Apple Incorporated. So,
Yep.
kind of smoothing over the
yeah.
actual issues that are in the factory.
Yeah. So what we're finding is that because so many people involved in the third-party certifier business are vested, they have corporate investment in the factories being certified.
Which is a conflict of interest, pretty obviously.
Right. So we found Workers' Rights Consortium, which is the WRC, which was established by United Students Against Sweatshops. They have an amazing website with a lot of resources, which we relied on heavily when we were doing our campaign research. WRC has all NGOs, nonprofits, student leaders, professors, people who are genuinely interested in the rights of the worker on their
And learning
board,
at like a university level, wow, the instruction you could be giving and taking, and
Yep.
that's incredible.
Yeah, so they're really great. They do a lot of little extra things to go above and beyond to make sure they're getting true answers and that everything really is checking out. They interview the workers off-site, so that there's no pressure for them to lie in front of their
Right.
supervisors. They do just little things like that are above and beyond. And so we're working with UVM to hopefully have them bring on, they say that they're happy with the FLA. So if they're happy with the FLA, then that's fine with us, as long as they want to take on the WRC as an additional third-party certifier to monitor the factories where their clothing is being made. So,
Right. Yeah, I got that. Or maybe possibly get them to change.
well, we asked that at first, but beggars can't be choosers, and
Right.
if they have two, it's almost better because you have two independent companies
Right.
working, even though one might not be our first pick.
Yeah, no,
You know.
right. Depends on what the outcome could
Yeah.
be different once they compare and contrast what's being certified and what's not, and
Yeah.
with new information.
Yeah.
All right, great. So on February 16th, Carmen will be back, and we are going to have some of the people that you've been working with on campus.
Yep, hopefully a representative from each of those organizations.
Okay,
and hopefully
neat.
we are meeting with them on the 13th of January. We're meeting with UVM. So hopefully we'll have some more answers for you, and
Yeah,
you can
cool.
have something to look forward to with how that's progressing.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, thanks again, Carmen.
thank
And we'll see you on February 16th, and we'll continue this discussion. Stay tuned, everyone. After a brief reshuffling here, we're going to return with Kathy Hartley and Art Bragg. Thank you.
sail. In these times of struggle.
Hi there, and welcome to Art Break. This is a show about art. I love to interview artists, musicians, and creative souls, and it's a lot of fun. It's all about the arts. First, I'm going to talk to you about a show that's been going on at the BCA. It's an art exhibit, and there's a book called Reference for Radicals. It's the Reference for Radicals book, and it's produced by the Peace and Justice Center of Vermont. And several artists collaborated on this book, including one, Dan LaFrancois, who I interviewed here on my show. And the artists have artwork at the Church Street, at the Burlington City Arts on Church Street, which is right next to City Hall. This coming Wednesday, you can bid on their artwork, and it's the last chance to see the artwork. The exhibit is ending, and you can meet the artists. The exhibit is coming to a close, so I thought I'd put in a little plug for them, and I hope to have more of the artists that did the artwork on Reference for Radicals book. Today, you are in for a treat. I have my guest, Matteo Palmer. Hi, Matteo.
Thanks for having me.
Nice of you to be here. Matteo, you play guitar.
I do, yeah.
And what type of guitar playing is this?
This would be classified as fingerstyle guitar.
Fingerstyle.
Instead of using a flat pick, I actually use all of my fingers.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So you're doing a lot of the actual different types of music with your hand, with your picking hand.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Matteo has a CD out, which I will talk about a little bit more afterward. It's produced by Will Ackerman, who's a Vermont music producer.
Yeah, he actually has a recording studio down in Dummerston, Vermont, called Imaginary Road Studios.
Okay. And on this CD is a bass player who is Tony Levin.
Tony Levin.
Tony Levin is a famous bass player.
Yes.
You
He's
were
very world renowned.
Neat, and he has played with who?
He's played with many people, some being Peter Gabriel, and he's played with John Lennon and Paul Simon, and the list goes on.
Wow.
He's played with a lot of people.
That's amazing.
It's
I bet you
pretty-
feel pretty honored.
It was humbling.
Yeah,
having
kind
him
of
play.
out of world experience.
Right. Yeah.
Neat. That's so cool that you got to play with someone so prolific. And you're still a young man, and I know your music is fantastic because I've been listening to you practice. You all are just going to be blown away. So you're going to be playing 3 songs. The first one is called "Escaping Reality." Is that the
Escaping
first one you're going
Reality,
to do? How long have you been playing guitar?
I've been playing since 7th grade, so
Yeah.
about 6 years now.
Yeah, it's amazing. And how did you get interested in playing guitar?
Well, if we want to go way back, it was
Well, sure.
I picked up a guitar in 3rd grade, and I put it down pretty quickly. Just it was
You were very
frustrating,
young.
and the hands were small, and
Right.
but it was back then when I had my father ask me if I wanted to start guitar lessons. I have a neighbor, his name is Darren Donovan, and he does guitar lessons, and
Lucky.
so, yeah,
Handy.
exactly, right. So I worked with him for years.
Nice.
He's a great guy, great guitar teacher, and
Great.
it was really fun. I can still remember times when actually my mother plays guitar, and times when she taught me, like Smoke on the Water.
Right.
Just those easy.
Doesn't everybody start with
Oh
that?
yeah, the one string
right?
song.
And did you take guitar lessons from anyone else?
I took guitar lessons for a while with Paul Asbell as well.
Paul Asbell.
And,
amazing Vermont guitarist,
Yeah.
singer, musician. He's incredible.
He's taught me many techniques, and
Wow.
a lot of what I play on this album would not have been possible without him. Really.
Really?
a lot of the like Merle Travis double thumbing sort of techniques, which I'm going to show you in this next song.
Okay.
Yep.
Why don't you just take it away?
Oh, sure. So this one's called Escaping Reality.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Escaping reality.
Thank you.
That is just so beautiful how much music you can get out of an instrument.
Yeah, right. That's one of the appealing parts about the guitar is just it's such a versatile instrument, and you can play so many different sounds on it too, like the all those harmonic stuff, and then just the traditional just picking, and in a couple songs I actually play percussion on them.
Percussion on there. Yeah, that's
there's a
so
lot
incredible.
of stuff you can do with the guitar. So.
And this is...
Oh, this is a handy device. It's called a tuner.
Tuner, your little tuner. You have to tune in between each song, I'm sure.
I use a lot of alternate tunings.
Right.
it opens up a whole new world. Yeah, it really does. It lets you. It makes you have to explore.
Yeah.
So
Which is
you
a
don't
good
really
thing.
know what chords you're doing or anything, and
Nice.
yeah, it's
Yeah, the
really fun.
weather probably has a lot to do with how the strings react and
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
a lot of conditions.
Yeah.
So this next song is called what?
This next song is called Conchetta,
Conchetta.
and that's actually my grandmother's name.
Really?
Yes, and I actually played this for her memorial service last year. She
Oh, my
asked me to
goodness.
write or play a song for her, and so I wrote the song for her and played it for her.
How beautiful.
Yeah, it's all. It
Are we all tuned?
Yeah, we're all tuned.
Sweet.
here's the
Okay. I
next
can't
song.
wait to hear this.
Conchetta.
Conchetta.
Thank you.
Don't stop. That's just gorgeous. That's the kind of music that I would like to put on and just like do artwork and just disappear. That's
Yeah.
I bet sometimes you get playing and you just play for hours and don't even stop.
Oh yeah, more than you know.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It takes.
You can
I
just
practice
get
a lot.
so involved
Yeah.
in the sound of
Yeah.
it. Yeah, you practice all the time.
I do. I practice.
It shows. You are extremely good.
If you were if you go to my house,
It's
be
all
aware.
guitar.
It's like I'm wherever I go, I have my guitar. That's
Right, that's great.
just what it is.
That's how you get prolific and practice.
Yeah, that's what it is. You just gotta keep practicing.
Oh, I just can't wait to hear how good you are. Like 5 years from now, you'll be amazing. Because you already are. So you have these CDs. People can find you. Find your CD on CD Baby.
Yep.
And
CD Baby.
Amazon
Yep.
and iTunes. I guess
Yeah,
they
just type my name in.
Yep, Matteo Palmer Music at gmail.com or it's MatteoPalmerMusic.com.
MatteoPalmerMusic.com is
Which
my
we'll
website.
put up at
Yep.
the end of the show. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah.
So we only have a couple minutes left. I just want to put in a plug then for where else you can get the CD, and then you can just music our way out of our segment here.
Yeah, sure.
This is Art Break, and you can contact me at artbreakvermont@gmail.com. I'd love to have you on my show, and there's the email address. Matteo is MatteoPalmerMusic.com.
Yep.
And there you can find links to wherever you can find his CD, which is called Out of Nothing. Out of Nothing, and it's amazing. It's just an amazing CD.
And that's
it-
yours.
And this is mine. This is my copy. I'm gonna have to have you sign it. And it features Tony Levin, and I just can't wait to hear those particular songs. And so also in Bristol at Recycled Reading, we can find your CDs, and also in Middlebury at Vermont Bookshops and Vermont's Own.
Yep. Yep.
Perfect. That is something that everyone needs to get. And so this last song is called Sleepy Dog.
Yeah.
And there's a
written-
sleepy dog over here in the corner, which is perfect.
Yeah, this was written for my dog.
Okay, so we just have a few seconds left while we reorganize
play
the
out.
seating.
I'll play out.
Perfect. Thank you, Matteo.
Have you read the news? Have you let it get you? Yeah, people there are saying how bad it's gonna get. And I've been calling to the sky, please don't let more bullets fly. Have you heard the talk of the cities and the towns? There's a fear from the inside and the coil all around. I've been hoping for my help, find a cure to come and sail. In these times of struggle, you can hear the children cry.
All right, welcome back. This is our final segment today, and this is Voices Vermont, the local focus on issues affecting all of us. So On Saturday, January 4th, which was yesterday, there was a rally, a march, and a speak out organized by Rising Tide Vermont and 350vermont.org, I believe, in opposition to the Corporate Service Board decision to issue a statement of corporate good concerning the construction of an unnatural gas pipeline from Chittenden County under Lake Champlain to the power plant at International Paper Corp in Ticonderoga, New York. Oh yeah, and a couple folks near the construction zone are going to be able to tap in and show their support for fossil foolishness. That goes without saying. We are going to watch a short video by Arthur Hines documenting the rally, and then we're going to return with my guests here and talk about the issues. So, Jim, can you roll that video for us?
Children cry.
Water's on fire! We don't need no gas with the corporations burn! The water's on fire! We don't need no gas, let the corporations burn!
My name's Sarah Mahalik. I'm an organizer with Rising Tide Vermont, and we're all here today because we think that the Public Service Board approving a new fossil fuel project in the state of Vermont is just a blatant abdication of their responsibility to the public good. And because the state process has really failed to secure our human rights and protect our communities and our environment, we're here to say that we're ready to take the struggle into our own hands.
We need everybody. Our collective future is at stake. So if we are going to salvage our human rights to work with dignity and jobs with justice and a healthy environment and a livable planet, then we need to stand together. And so we are here today. So who is down Franklin Martin? Well, they're a law firm right up the street there. And they're a law firm that is working to bust the union at St. Mike's. They're a law firm that is working hand in hand with the fossil fuel industry to bring tar sands and fracked gas through Vermont. And they are emblematic of what we're up against, which is an interlocking system of oppression. And so what we're going to do is we're going to gather in front of Downs Franklin Martin, and we're going to tell them and Governor Shumlin and the rest of the fossil fuel industry that the gloves are coming off. The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Frack gas has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Frack gas has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Frack gas has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Frack gas has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Frack gas has got to go. Hey, hey, ho, ho. Frack gas has got to go. Hey.
We have gathered today to let all those who represent Vermont Gas know that despite the Public Service Board's decision to favor big business and the expansion of extreme energy infrastructure over the health and longevity of communities and the natural world, by issuing Vermont Gas the Certificate of Public Good, we pledge our continued and increasing resistance.
All right, we're going to hear next from one of the landowners affected. This is Nate Palmer. Nate?
As a landowner, for me, they're telling me I should look down the road at my neighbors in Virgins and Rutland, and I should help take care of them. I guess I'm a little backwards. I look the other way down the pipe at where this is coming from, and all I see is water damage, health issues, people's cattle and their land being destroyed. And for me, I'm not going to partake in that. I'm not going to allow them to use my land voluntarily. So when it comes time for the pipeline to come through, and if you want to come hang out on the property, you're all welcome. Thank you very much.
It's a very urgent crisis, the environmental crisis. We're on track for a 4 to 6 degree increase in temperatures by the end of the century. And so, yeah, we need to keep all the fossil fuels in the ground as of today. And what looks good to them right now is just drill, baby, drill. And that's what they're going to do unless we stop them.
Necessary to join others in our community
and engage in acts of resistance, including civil disobedience and direct action, to stop the fracked gas pipeline.
Solidarity forever, for unity makes us strong.
All right. Fantastic video. I love the way Arthur put that together. That's just very well done. And it says it all. So just a really quick point, and then I'm going to turn the guests loose here, and we're going to talk about as many issues as we can cover in the time we have. So I want to emphasize that any benefit from this project to Vermonters is just purely coincidental. The $5 billion Gaz Metro Corporation from Quebec is the Canadian corporate master of Vermont Gas, and it's in a race with New York and Pennsylvania interests to get a pipeline to International Paper so they can start billing them. This means millions in profits, and therein lies the push to get this done. International Paper earned $28 billion last year from operations in 24 different countries. They are the region's largest polluter with toxic emissions of 400,000 pounds per year. And this is more than twice the pollution generated by all Vermont businesses combined. So how does feeding these monsters with fracked gas serve the public good? So let me introduce my guests, Emily Reynolds and Colin Flood. Nice to have you here.
Thanks for having us.
And they are both members of Rising Tide Vermont. So this is all, what we're talking about here is raising atmospheric carbon dioxide levels. I know about where the atmospheric carbon is rising about 2 parts per million per year in the 21st century so far, at least through '09, and then it's rising faster since then. Just tell us how the rally went yesterday that you think, and where should we go from here? Go for it, Emily.
Okay, I think the rally was great, and I was very excited that we had big rallies before as Rising Tide and gotten hundreds of people out, but I thought this was an important rally because we pledged increasing resistance to this corporation and their continued pollution and profits, and just like the way that people connected all these issues together. And I was really excited to see a lot of the janitors from St. Mike's coming out, because all these issues, like as Rising Tide, we see the climate crisis as part of a crisis of democracy and a crisis that is inherent of capitalism and this system that requires that our main interests as people is to put profit before the rest of any interests, and that is obviously helping only the wealthy. Mm-hmm. And this climate change and the climate crisis is a part of that struggle.
Yeah, short-term profits, and it could be to the detriment of all of us, but...
Well, and that's really what's going on here, is that the Public Service Board, we protested the decision of the Public Service Board to approve the pipeline because it's really an abdication of their duty to the public good. And this really illustrates the crisis that our society and our planet is in, that we can't count on our ruling institutions to do the right thing for people anymore. And so the rally was about people, actual people, stepping outside the system and pledging to take matters into our own hands and do what's necessary to save our planet.
Right. If you're going to counterbalance corporate power, I mean, think about it. What else can do that but an energized, vigorous, bunch of working people and regular citizens? Because what else can counterbalance just really narrow corporate greed? That's the only reason they exist, is to maximize profits and expand their market share. Something has to rein that in.
Right. And as Pika said in her speech, Everybody has tried all these other legal avenues. You know, we got hundreds and hundreds of people to send letters. 96% of the letters that were sent to the Public Service Board were overwhelmingly in opposition to the decision. Hundreds of people came out. To most Public Service Board decisions, nobody ever comes out, and hundreds of people showed up to these meetings to voice overwhelming opposition. And clearly the state has decided that this is not an issue that's important to them, that they're just gonna rubber stamp the process from Vermont Gas and Gas Metro. And this rally was to really say that just because you think you can do this, there are people who are gonna stand in this pipeline's way. We're gonna make sure that our planet and our children have a better future.
Right. Many times it's a given that the corporate sector will get their way, because that's kind of the way the system is rigged towards. The bigger the money pile you have, the more power and influence you have, and that's the way it works. But again, the best counterbalance to that is invigorated citizens.
And united citizens. We've seen a constant tactic of trying to divide people. Neighbors are being divided against each other where the pipeline's going through. The pipeline's moved off some people's land who make a stink about it, and they move it onto someone's land who makes less money. They're not letting neighbors talk to each other about stuff like that. They're trying to divide. They're trying to make us choose between jobs that we need to survive and an environment that we need to survive. Like, those things are somehow separate. So it was good to have groups like Rising Tide, and then groups like, the St. Mike's janitors, who are trying to form a union at the same rally, saying, no, we're not going to be divided, and we're not going to let our communities be divided, that we're all standing together as people against extractive processes like this.
Yeah. So the one of the primary issues, of course, there's, like I mentioned before, there's the corporate issue of a giant Canadian corporation basically just using Vermonters to feed gas to another huge multinational, which is International Paper. Like I said, they're in 24 countries and earning almost $30 billion a year. And we know that's what the game is. The trouble is the hydrofracking process that, 40 or 50% of the gas that's supposedly moving through the lines is going to be I
don't know exactly how much it is, but they've admitted that, it will come from fracking.
Right. It's probably all of it, realistically. I mean, it could easily be. I mean, how would we know? But I think I heard the 40% figure officially in some of that Public Service Board arguing. Just a point of information for people that don't understand some of those issues. Natural gas, natural gas is primarily methane, which is a very aggressive greenhouse gas. There's a lot of leakage in the pumping stations when they're pressurizing the system in the extraction process, and even at the end user. I mean, you're releasing tons of greenhouse gases.
Because what we're facing is a climate crisis, right? Like, NASA scientist James Hansen, this is a little wonky and there's really no way to avoid it, but NASA scientist James Hansen said above 350 parts per million carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, life as we know it is in peril, or words to that effect. And we recently passed 400 parts per million in the atmosphere, and we're climbing 2 million parts per million a year. And so we need drastic action really quickly. And the corporations, instead of being terrified at the prospect of civilization unraveling, they're seeing this as a money-making opportunity to build this natural gas pipeline that burns cleaner and is like a bridge fuel. They're calling it like a transition fuel to a cleaner future. In fact, it's more like a gangplank. Because if you actually look at the science of this pipeline, yes, methane, natural gas, it burns cleaner at the actual where it comes out, but methane, if it escapes into the atmosphere unburned, is 20 times more potent than carbon dioxide, and it does escape into the atmosphere unburned.
It does, a lot.
A recent Cornell study said that because of the escapes and the leakage of methane into the atmosphere, fracking is actually worse than coal mining in terms of the atmosphere. So there's a lot of smoke being blown by Vermont Gas, and it's important for people to know about these issues and to educate themselves, because it's really scary.
So in the end game, burning natural gas is not necessarily, if you include the whole process, from the extraction through the end use of burning it to generate power, it's no cleaner than coal in the net effect. It might even be more aggressive and worse. And we're talking about the extinction of species, and ours included. I mean, it's a real crisis. I know I read a thing the other day, a little statement by Sir Brian Hoskins of the Royal Society in Great Britain, and he stated that the 400 parts per million atmospheric CO2 that you just mentioned is what we've now reached. We're way beyond 350. Should jolt governments into action. But the only thing that jolts governments into action is usually either corporate lobbying or people in the streets that aren't going to take it. And it's amazing sometimes how quick political will can collapse with a large number of average people in the streets in opposition. You can change things.
And that's actually Rising Tide. Our organization was founded following the failure of governments and NGOs across the world to do anything about climate change. You know,
Right.
every so often they have a big international summit where they all gather together and try to find a way to save the planet without making rich people uncomfortable.
Exactly.
You know? And a lot of Rising Tide was founded kind of out of that process, saying we clearly, governments and businesses are not going to solve this crisis, and it's not going to wait any longer. So it's up to us to rally the people.
Right. There's a great Earth First slogan from years ago. There's no profits on a dead planet. So even that issue goes away. If you look beyond, if you can look past the next month's balance sheet and look down the road, there's a lot. I mean, say you happen to be a corporate capitalist. There's a lot of money to be made in a more responsible energy future. It doesn't mean the end of business and the end of the world as we know it and standards of living. Well, I'm just saying, speaking in general terms, we could have evolved a little bit more, democratically controlled corporation. That's a whole nother issue. But there's still, it doesn't mean we have to go back to an
Banging
agrarian
rocks together.
society, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's technology and there's high standards of living possible. There's amazing things we've never even explored because we let giant multinationals lead us around like a bunch of children. And I mean, I'm not indicting us. We're it's very hard to resist them.
And the vast majority of the energy we're using in this country is not doing things like fueling our houses or like letting us get to work. Like the vast majority of our energy is going to corporations or going to the cars that we need to go to get to work. So all these issues are really connected in a lot of ways, and it's structural. So we need to build a movement that empowers working people to take on these corporations that are making billions and billions of dollars. And I think part of that process is challenging this pipeline and challenging the tar sands pipeline through Alberta and just making it impossible to continue these processes because it's really a choke point. Like these pipelines coming through Vermont are choke points to like stop a system of extraction.
I know the Canadian industry and basically the Canadian government, they're pretty much desperate to try to move both the gas and the diluted bitumen, supposed oil or crude oil, to the coast so they can export it. So it's not about solving North America's energy problems. Even this hydro-fracked gas, they want to get it to the coastline. Why do they want to do that? To export it, to make money.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, these people have no shame. Like
none.
When we talk, they use that argument all the time. It's about energy independence for America.
Yeah.
A, when did we annex Canada? This is Canadian corporations that are making this money. And B, when it comes to the tar sands they want to ship through Vermont, which is separate than the pipeline we were protesting, but it's all, again, connected. That pipeline, they want to ship tar sands through Vermont, risking spills, destroying the climate, so that they can send it to Portland, Maine, and ship it overseas. None of that oil is going to be burned in American cars, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And again, the gas pipeline they're building, yes, it's servicing a few people along the way, but International Paper, this giant conglomerate that, has its own environmental problems, is paying for half the project, and that's the only reason they're doing it.
Right.
People are just getting in the way. Human benefits are just like something they can use to get the pipeline through, even though they don't actually care about it at all.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, the power plant at International Paper, I believe it's large enough that the plant uses so much electricity. It's a power plant the size of like a municipal one that would be energizing 40 or whatever 50,000 homes. It's a serious amount of gas they're going to burn up down there, which means a lot of money. A couple other tidbits that I just dug up the last couple days that, like we discussed, a pre-industrial, if people didn't know. So what's the atmospheric carbon in pre-industrial times? It was about 280 parts per million. In November 1988, we surpassed the 350 parts per million threshold, worldwide. So that's when we blew through 350 parts per million. In May 2013, we surpassed the 400 parts per million level for the first time. We're expected to move past 400 parts per million in 2014, sometime in the middle of the year. So, fully working into the above 400 parts per million. These measurements are taken from the top of Mauna Loa volcano in Hawaii. That's where they do the measuring of atmospheric carbon, pretty much for the worldwide standard. And at the end of this year in November, just passed, we're averaging 395.1 parts per million, which is entering a post-human period. Like you say, that's not a sustainable level.
Well, that's what's so surreal about the whole conversation is we're actually talking about something really unprecedented and serious.
Yeah, post-human is serious.
Yeah.
I mean, Sir David King, who was a top scientist in the United Kingdom, said several years ago that if business as usual continues, by the end of this century, the only continent left fit for human habitation will be Antarctica. And you'd think that would get governments and corporations to maybe change their business model a little bit. But they don't actually care about anything but next year's profit cycle, So it's really urgent that everybody get into the streets and do whatever they can to stop this pipeline and to challenge the corporate structures that rule our lives and to fight to take back our planet and our birthright.
So then, the first question that people ask me when I even sort of introduce the subject is, so what do we do? I mean, what are like meaningful solutions? What can and people will say, there's not nearly enough wind for wind generators. There's not nearly enough solar capacity. Well, of course, those are both not true. Maybe with the infrastructure that we've developed so far, but what do you think is a responsible direction to head? Say we can stop some of this insanity. How would a future energy, to you guys, just in your personal opinion, what would a future energy kind of like matrix look like?
Well, Rising Tide is based on a democratic, just transition away from fossil fuels.
Okay.
It's not about any one particular fuel or any one particular energy source, because they all have their benefits and their drawbacks. The point is to empower people to make decisions about what energy they're going to use and what they're going to allow in their communities. You can take things that are not coal or like not petroleum, like natural gas and wind power, and those are controversial, but not because anyone's against natural gas or wind power per se. It's because the people building these projects, the people making these decisions are massive multinational corporations who are ramming them down the throats of small communities just for their own profit. And that's not the way we want to do business.
Entirely anti-democratic.
We want people to be able to make decisions in their communities and on their own in a fully transparent and participatory way. That's how we'll decide what energy we're going to use. We're not prescribing any particular energy source or system at this point. We're believers in democracy.
Small d democracy, boy, that's radical. Actually participating in determining your own future. That would be something really special. Yeah, we need that in all aspects of our life. That's probably one of the biggest drawbacks to the system that we live in, is that we are kind of led around like children by big multinationals. And these aren't just symptoms. This is what you get. This is the evolution of industrial corporate capitalism, up to this point. And it's entirely anti-democratic. As a matter of fact, one of the biggest fears that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and their cabal of multinationals has is energized, active people. So they use us as consumers, but they are entirely afraid of us at that street level and what the change that people can bring about. So that's something to be proud of. If anybody can rock a corporate boardroom and make them actually understand, that's a big challenge.
I think definitely, like, I know that when I got involved in Rising Tide, like, I don't really know any of the numbers, and I'm a scientist too, but like a lot of the environmental science confuses me, and for a lot of reasons. But I got involved in this struggle because I'm a feminist and always have been a feminist. And if you look globally, women do 70% of the work on the land. They own less than 1% of the property. And same with like people in the global south. So this idea of justice, and that if we brought justice to people, they would use their land better, because women are not, you know, they've taken care of this land for thousands and thousands of years, and we're seeing a lot of people get forced into the slums of the cities. A lot of farmers in, you know, the global south are being pushed into industrial centers that are popping up, being supported by the industrial centers in what, you know, is called the global north or the first world or whatever we want to call it. And so they're pushing all these people who've always lived sustainable lifestyles into cities, and then they become some of the poorest people in the world, and they don't have any ability to challenge those corporations. So I think that's why justice and building a really radically democratic movement is such an important concept, and why the environmental movement really needs to align with other movements.
Oh yeah, it's about building bridges between like-minded groups and knowing who your allies are and your natural allies. We all have a lot of natural allies, and the challenge we face is organizing to face the most highly organized structures in human society are these corporations, and they run the Pentagon, they run the justice system, they run the political system. It's complete corporate domination. So to organize against that is up to us. Yeah. It's about people. So, and I am a firm believer that we can do it. Always stay hopeful. I mean, I know we can. We have crossed a lot of bridges in human history and faced a lot of bottlenecks and a lot of bad stuff, and we have pulled through it each time.
I mean, you saw with the anti-nuclear movement 30 years ago. People basically stopped all creations of new power plants.
That and
by
some
being
hellacious
in the street
meltdowns.
and direct actions. And I mean, a lot of the power plants continued, but really there was a block of any new power plants because of resistance in the street. So resistance does work, and there's many examples from the past we can turn to.
Yeah, thank goodness. That is not a solution either. That is neither green nor lean.
Yeah, and again, nobody would choose to have a nuclear power plant in their neighborhood if it was totally up to them.
If it was democratic.
And that's where justice shakes out. Yeah.
All right, you guys, that is about all the time we have. Thank you very much. Thanks, Rising Tide. It was an awesome rally yesterday.
Thanks for coming.
And yeah, you better believe it. And let's keep the pressure on. I hope to have you guys back.
Absolutely.
Soon.
Wow.
All right, this has been Critical Mass TV. Thanks again. Tune in next time. Good night.